Getting to play Monster Hunter Wilds has unearthed so many ridiculous new gameplay maneuvers, layered nuggets of depth, and secrets the devs snuck in there. It's kinda unreal that we get this in just a matter of months. So here are 20 impressive details, hidden techniques, or things you could completely miss in Monster Hunter Wilds. Number 1. Monsters have temporary weak points that are only revealed during certain attacks. Like when the Balahara's mouth is open, you can use a focus strike to exploit it. After some of the electrical expulsions that come out of the Raidow's face horn ear things, there's a brief window where that face is tuckered out, and you can take advantage of that if you're quick to react. Doshigama's will go in for some giant hugs, and its belly meat will reveal a tender spot where it's very, very, very ticklish. Chatacabra's is pretty obvious, when its tongue is hanging out all awkwardly like it's on its first date. If you're not jumping into focus mode from time to time, you could not even know these windows of opportunity were a thing. Number 2. During storms, these great Thunderbugs will show up all around the map, and they can shock a monster if they get too close. However, my preferred way to use these is to actually save them for later, by using a capture net on them instead, which will add a deployable shock trap to your inventory. Since you can find these bugs all over the map during a storm, this is an easy way to lay down traps frequently and earn them right back. Number 3. Deployable traps can now be packed up and put back in your inventory. Same thing for the large barrels. You can pick them up and hold the input to squeeze the things back into your pocket for later use. Or you could instead pick them up and kind of waddle around with them and actually throw them, which encourages you to tap into that monster bowling skill set. You can also hold the input when getting a barrel out to skip right to holding it in your hands, instead of placing it on the ground first. Monster Hunter Rise had the throw the bomb straight down in the air thing, but in Wilds, you can chuck and roll barrels in an entirely different vertices, but you do need to cross your fingers a little bit more that the outcome is a success. Number 4. Since you can now swap between 2 different weapons on your mount, here's something you can do. You can use a hunting horn to input 3 songs, play them all out in a quick sequence, swap weapons, and maintain all those active buffs to amplify any other weapon you might be using. Play some damage buffs before jumping into combat with the greatsword, gives something like a stamina boost to the dual blades or bow, so on with all the different types of horn effects. For solo hunters, this is even more important, since that lets you enjoy those doodly-doot-doot melodies without the need for a full-time hunting horner on your team. If you instead plan to main the hunting horn, disregard all that, you're good. But if not, it does make a phenomenal secondary booster weapon that can make every other weapon type even stronger. Number 5. Many of the weapons have new ways you can subtly influence your movement during certain attacks. This makes it easier to keep combos going while actively avoiding incoming attacks, or to reposition in response to the target's movement. Like the Sword and Shield, can now maintain an attack in one direction but move omnidirectionally. In Monster Hunter World, the Sword and Shield would completely change the direction you were facing instead. The gun lance can now shell and readjust their position either forward, back, or to the side. In World, you would mostly just blast backwards a little bit but stay in place. The Switch Axe's blade attacks can now move your character forward, back, or to the side in a similar way to the Sword and Shield. In World, you would mostly just stay in one place during this sequence. There's many of these micro adjustments you can make during attacks, which is why Wild's combat feels more fluid and less rigid when compared to previous installments in the series. Number 6. Your mount actually has a Seikret Pouch on it that can be accessed to restock certain items that have been added over time during a hunt. On controller, this was set to left on the D-pad to open that secondary inventory. This can provide extra health potions and rations, but also you'll occasionally get items that are useful counters to the specific monster you're hunting. Number 7. Many weapons now have either a perfect guard or perfect evade mechanic built into their core moveset. Like with weapons that can guard, if you do it at the last second, you'll perfect guard, which can kick you into enhanced attacks out of it or a power clash with the monster. With something like the bow, getting a dodge at the last moment will trigger a perfect evade, or with the dual blades actually give you a temporary buff that makes subsequent dodges spin around and attack at the same time. The greatsword's offset rising slash can also be used as a counter if the outgoing attack animation collides with an incoming attack animation, which will then rush you forward into a follow-up. Number 8. If you slink up creepily behind a monster, you can now sneak attack their butt. I wrote that sentence. You don't have to be crouched to see the sneak attack prompt, but it will help with the approach. If you're quick, you can even put down some barrel bombs and use that sneak attack to detonate them at the same time. Number 9. If you use your slinger on a Gygeos, you'll grab a stock of bleeding pods. If you use a bleeding pod on a monster's red glowy wound spot, it'll instantly trigger and destroy it. Useful when a wound is on a spot that's hard to hit with your weapon's focus strike. If the wound is on a monster's leg, popping the wound will knock them down and set you up nicely for subsequent wall-ups. Number 10. The Bowguns get an extra bonus, which lets them fire a wound-destroying focus blast while riding a mount. With the heavy Bowgun, this focus blast is somewhat tricky to time on foot since it locks you in place for a few seconds. However, jump on your favorite ostrich raptor dog and you can use that same attack while mounted to actually be able to move and fire it. Number 11. Speaking of bird dog lizard horses, in Monster Hunter Rise, you could drift boost with your Palamute. And in Wilds, the devs give a subtle nod to that mechanic which is not listed in the controls. If you hold right trigger and left or right and release before you slow down too much, you can kind of drift these bad boys and boost out of it a little bit. A nice little touch for anyone who did this thousands of times in Rise. Number 12. This is such a weird attention to the details, but if you go in and turn on Arachnophobia Assistance, it takes these bug things that some people might find creepy and changes them into the cutest gummy bears I've ever seen. These substitute character models are so endearing in design, I vote for these slime globs as official creatures. Oh no, their poor little feet are wiggling. I'm confusingly sad and hungry. Number 13. You can now take Tranq bombs and combine them with your throwing knives to make a superior sleeping agent called Tranq Blades. Unlike the basic Tranq bombs that are thrown right down at your feet, the Tranq Blades can inflict a nap at further away. For melee weapon users, you now have an effective way to capture from a distance, similar to the Tranq ammo that ranged weapons have always had. Number this many. When you come across these brambles, you can extract Thorngrass Pods to load in your slinger. You can then attach those to a monster and they'll create a grouping of thorns wherever they stick. These Thorngrass spots you've decorated them with will then act as a multi-strike point, triggering extra ticks of damage out of your weapon. A hammer user, for example, usually can't see this many damage numbers popping off from just one swing. These things are so satisfying, I kind of wish they lasted a little longer before they break. There's still time for tweaks. Hypothetical patch notes. Thorngrass Pods now last 1.72 times longer. Yes. Number 15. When you consent to mounting a monster now, you're incentivized to inflict wounds on every section of their back before you get down from there. If you don't get thrown off, you can initiate a draw finisher on one of those wound spots while keeping the others you left up there still active. If you use a focus strike to destroy those two, it's a really quick 3-piece combo of damage, broken parts, and broken hearts. Number 16. Here's a cool trick to the hunting horn that lets you input a rapid sequence of notes during certain actions. One is during the echo bubble while you're waving the horn up in the air. During this, you can input 3 quick notes of any type. This skips the need to actually do 3 separate attacks to get those notes on the bar. The other option is during the hunting horn's focus strike. While you're charging power into the horn, there's a window where you can input a quick succession of notes before that damage impact hits. Number 17. Monsters can move and shift around sand, and sometimes under that sand, there be treasure. I found ancient wyvern coins buried under the sand, but what else might be hiding down there? Number 18. Here's a nice quality of life thing. If you open the menu, hit Submenu, Edit Tabs, and then enable the Favorites menu. This lets you curate your own list of menu functions and shortcuts to whatever you want it to have. Number 19. The fishing mechanic makes a return in Wilds, but for fans of Monster Hunter World, they'll know that a capture net can also be used to catch fish. Sometimes you can just jump right in the water with them and blast those fish point blank with far less skill. And number 20. The map has a lot of useful info if you go into the Environmental Overview tab. This shows you every active target on the map, and notice that some versions of monsters will yield higher material rates than others, so choose accordingly. You can also see all the active events that are currently going on, and the forecast of changes that are coming, which includes monsters that will be showing up on the map in the future. Okay, yes, there are a lot of new mechanics for salivating OGs to smother themselves in, but I also feel like Wilds is the perfect place to start brand new to Monster Hunter. It's easier than ever for players at skill level 0 to pick this up, since the movement system is so fluid this time around, but with potentially a higher skill ceiling compared to Monster Hunter World and Rise. The combat system rewards skilled play and timing more than ever, and each weapon has some kind of new hook that radically changes how it can approach an encounter. So overall, highly impressed with the beta, but let me know your feedback for the devs if you were able to put some time in as well. If you want more on Monster Hunter Wilds, maybe stick around on my channel, because I have more content planned. As always, I'm Alex. Thanks for checking this out today, and I'll see you soon in the next one.